بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. And as you know, we have, with the grace of Allah Azza wa Jal, finished the book on Islamic fiqh and covered in a very elementary and simple way the sharia, the fiqh rulings that were made into this concise and beneficial book that I highly recommend that people download it, study it. They can always watch the 73 or 72 episodes on the website islamicfiqh.net. And I think if you manage to pass all the tests that the website is providing, you'll be able to get a certificate, inshallah, signed in regards of passing this course. Hopefully it will be signed by me and by the board, the head of the board of the Usul group, and it would be something nice to have. Hopefully in the coming week or so we will maybe try to investigate the possibility of continuing these blessed lessons, but through studying a concise summary and book on Aqidah, so that we would have a clearer understanding of Aqidah for beginners, bi'idhnillahi azza wa jal. As for now, we have these questions that we would like to go through, inshallah, and see what you guys had sent us. So in the beginning, this is Muhammad Aslam says, I have a question. If a person passes away, how to share or how the inheritance would be distributed? Muhammad Aslam, this is not a specific question, because there are many variables to go into such a question, such as, does the deceased have a living father or mother? Does he have a wife or not? Does he have children? And are his children males and females, males only, or females only? And if he has females only, does he have siblings? And what is the gender of his siblings? So all of these variables contribute to answering your question. And this is why when anyone asks a question about inheritance, he should first say what gender the deceased was. So he says, a man died, okay, a woman died, and then he would say, leaving behind a spouse, 3 sons, 4 daughters, a mother, a father, 2 brothers from his mother's side, 3 siblings, 1 brother, full brother, and 2 full sisters. This is how a sheikh or a mufti can answer such a question, because by the presence of some of the heirs, others are deprived. So whenever there's a son or more to the deceased, immediately his siblings are blocked automatically, even if it's what was only 1 son. But if they were females, that's a different story. If there were only daughters, no sons. And likewise, in the presence of the father, the siblings are totally blocked, and so on. So you have to be more specific in your question. Tawfiq Wisha says, can you please explain what is meant by the right hand possession mentioned in the Qur'an? Example, Surah Al-Mi'raj, Surah Al-Ma'arij, and those who guard their private parts, verse 30. Okay, the right hand possession is referring to concubines possessed through Islamic war against the disbelievers. So when we have prisoners of war, men and women, these are sold as slaves. And a slave woman who's a concubine is what is mentioned in the ayah, the right hand possession, which a man, a Muslim man, can have sexual intercourse with without the need of marriage, because he possesses her, he bought her. And this is something that we talked about in detail in the past. Zayd Zubair says, I'm asking about the dalil, the evidence of the phrase sallallahu alayhi wasallam and masha'Allah. I know a group of people who claim that such phrases are innovations. Thank you, and may Allah preserve you and unite me and you in Jannatu al-Firdaus. Ameen. Such groups who claim such claims, usually, if you try to ask them anything in Arabic, most likely they will fail to respond to you. And I remember in one of the peace conferences in Mumbai in 2007 or 2009 maybe, a man stood and asked the lecturer, the speaker. So it was the Q&A time. The man stood and said, I am Al-Mahdi. My name is Muhammad ibn Abdullah, and I come here to proclaim what is mine, etc. Everybody was laughing, and the Sheikh was shocked at the time. And he asked him, do you know Arabic? And the man said, yes, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. He said, no. Do you know how to speak the language, the Arabic language? And the man said, no. So the Sheikh said to him, well, tough luck, because the Mahdi has to be an Arab fluent in Arabic. You cannot be a scholar without knowing Arabic. And likewise, this group that claims that sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is used by every single scholar on earth since the time of the Prophet alaihi salatu wasallam till date, uses, they don't know Arabic, and they just claim things and say that it is not permissible to be said, and they are innovations. Saying masha'Allah, an innovation. Subhanallah, they haven't read Surah Al-Kahf. Masha'Allahu la quwwata illa billah, a phrase found in Surah Al-Kahf, which we recite every Friday. So akhi, don't waste your time with such imbeciles and individuals who do not even speak the language of the Qur'an, and then have the audacity to come and claim that this is right and this is wrong. Ibrahim Abdul Qadir says, I seek your prayer. May Allah Azza wa Jal make you and I steadfast on Islam till the day we die. What is the rule of creating another jama'ah in the same masjid after Imam completes Salah? May Allah protect you from all evil. Ameen. The issue of the second congregation in the masjid is an issue of dispute. The vast majority of scholars permit it, and their proof is the instruction of the Prophet ﷺ. After he had concluded Fajr prayer with his companions, a latecomer entered the masjid. So the Prophet said to his companions, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who among you would give charity to this man and pray with him? So one of the companions stood up and he offered with him a congregational prayer. And this is crystal clear that this is something permissible without any doubt, insha'Allah. Adil Jabbar says, you said that Tahiyyatul Masjid is a must before Friday prayer, and after Fard you can offer 4 Sunnah or 2. I have 2 questions. 1. Are these Sunnah mandatory? The answer is, if you're referring to the 4 rak'ah or 2 rak'ah after Friday, the answer is no. They are not mandatory. If you're referring to Tahiyyatul Masjid, the answer is yes, it is mandatory. You must not sit until you offer it. His second question is, if we are offering Jum'ah while traveling, do we have to offer Tahiyyatul Masjid and these after Sunnah as well? First of all, if you are a traveler and you want to pray Friday prayer while traveling with other travelers, this is not permissible, because Friday prayer is only for residing people in a city. So if you reach a city and the people of that city are offering Jum'ah prayer in the masjid, you may join them. But to make your own Jum'ah with 100 travelers with you while you are traveling, this is not permissible. So if it's the first scenario, which is entering a city and finding people praying in the masjid and joining them, of course you have to pray the 2 rak'ah of Tahiyyatul Masjid before you sit down. As for the Sunnah afterwards, no, you're exempted from it, because a traveler does not pray the Sunnah prayers of Dhuhr, Maghrib and Isha. The Prophet ﷺ used to not offer these prayers, and Allah knows best. Mujida says, how best can a daughter make sure that her 90-year-old father keeps his trousers clean from urine, especially for salat, for prayer? The man cannot perceive odor at all, or something like that. Or orders, I don't know what she meant. If he's 90 years of age and he is senile, he's so old that he has Alzheimer, he doesn't know day from night, he doesn't know you're his daughter or a stranger or even his son, so he has lost it. In this case, salat is not mandatory upon him, because when Allah takes away a person's sanity, then Allah also takes away his obligations, so he's not obliged anymore to fast or to pray. But if he's still sane and accountable and knows what's going on, you should simply speak to him. His daughter should tell him that if you have traces of urine on your trousers or your underpants, then you have to change them and wash yourself. And if he washes himself and designate a special trousers for prayer, so that he is certain that these are always pure, and then he can soil, if he has urine incontinence, the other trousers, this is also okay, insha'Allah, and Allah knows best. Ibrahim says, can I skip Salah to see if my menses is over? If your menses is not over, if you still have menses, there's no Salat on you. But if you're meaning that you're approaching the time of purity, let us read the rest of the question. Like, I want to be sure before taking my ghusl, because sometimes I take ghusl many times, yet will see brownish color still coming. What to do? First of all, the brownish color can be before menses or after menses. Before menses is when a woman is pure. She prays, she fasts, she goes to school, she goes to work, she stays home. She has 21 to 23 days of purity. And then all of a sudden, she starts seeing brownish discharge, which usually comes a day, 2, 3, or maybe 4 days before the actual flow of blood. These brown discharges that come before, that come prior to the menses, are najis, but they are not her menses. So every adhan, she goes and changes her nappies, washes herself, performs wudu, and prays. And she is intact in wudu until the time runs out, and then she has to offer another wudu for the following fard prayer. This is one option when it comes before the actual menstruation. If it comes after the menstruation, and what do we mean by after? Meaning that the 6 or 7 days of menses, the blood stops to flow, then she sees and recognizes her purity. And her purity is recognized by one of two. Number one, the white thread-like discharge, which when she wipes, it shows no colors, but this white thread-like discharge. This is a clear sign of her purity. Or when the flow of the blood stops, she wipes and it comes clean. No discharges, no colors, nothing. This is another clear sign of her purity. She can now perform ghusl. If she were to see after 5 minutes, 1 hour, 5 hours, a day, brown discharges, these are nothing. She is pure. She has to take her ghusl once, and no matter how many times she sees this brown discharges, she should ignore it. After every adhan, she cleans herself, makes wudu. Cleaning herself meaning the changing the underwear and washing her private part affected by this brown discharge, and makes wudu and prays as normal. So I hope this answers your question. Rashid Al-Blushi says, there is a family dispute of two parties. One accused the other of trying to break into their house. They called the police and they were detained for 4 hours. This dispute happened during the month of Ramadan. After investigation, both by the police and the family, it was found out that a case was fabricated against the accused. So they were detained for 4 hours without any legitimate reason. We have asked the accuser who accused them of trying to break into his house, we asked him to apologize and exonerate the accused, but the accuser has refused to do so, still insisting that the accused did attempt to break in. Some members of the family do believe the accuser because of their refusal to apologize, being defiant and determined. What shall we do with arrogant accusers? We have abstained from visiting him except when there is some kind of emergency. We are maintaining barely minimum contact with him. Need your advice for the way forward. Well, it seems to me, Rashid, that you are one of two. Either you were the accused, so you are offended by this relative who accused you unfairly and unjustly, or you're a third party. You have nothing to do with the accuser nor the accused. They're just relatives of yours. If you are the first, meaning that it is you who was harmed and your reputation was tarnished by his lies, you have all the right to keep your distance and not to see them except in occasions, and to reply to their salam if they give salam, and if they don't, you give salam. That's it. But if you are a third party, meaning that you have nothing to do with the accuser or the accused, you were not harmed personally, you cannot take a stance in a disputable issue like this, where you don't know where the truth is. So by boycotting and severing your kinship with the accuser, you would be doing a major sin, because he did not harm you, he did not do anything to you. So what to do? I believe that you should not take sides, maintain your kinship, maybe from a distance, but at least you have to show him that you're still his relative and his kinship, and hope that Allah would reveal the truth one day. Angel Aisha or Aisha, Sheikh, thanks much to give us your, okay. What about ladies who are in dilemma, marriage problem, in life, suffering in silence? The husband drives them to love someone else. Love is blind, but the other person, the other man, does not know. Aisha, this is a complicated question, and it is the result of compiling sins over sins. If the husband is negligent, this is a problem, a serious problem, and the husband is held accountable by Allah Azza wa Jal. If the husband does not fulfill his wife's rights, we have to address this. But at the same time, if the wife herself is negligent of her husband's rights, she's not putting an effort to get close to him, to tempt him, to seduce him, the man would look elsewhere. And if she's not practicing to the extent that she doesn't lower her gaze, she chit-chats with non-mahram, this would lead her to fall in love with someone who is other than her husband, which is by itself a betrayal over a betrayal. So claiming that love is blind and that her husband drove her to this is totally unacceptable. If you wish, you could have always opted for khula and divorced your husband, but not to live with him and at the same time betray his name, tarnish his and your reputation, and insult your parents by what you are doing. Maybe you need a counseling session just to get things off your chest and at the same time get proper advice accordingly, and Allah knows best. Hassan Khan says, I have two questions. One, I married a girl through video call at the presence of my two friends. We, 4 people, the bride, myself, and the 2 friends, met together by Zoom meeting for 4 places or from 4 places. Is the marriage valid? The answer is no, it is not valid, because the Prophet said, alayhi salatu wasalam, clearly, there is no marriage without the approval of the guardian, the father. His second question is, if the parents of the girl become satisfied with it, then will be the marriage valid? The answer is still no. You two are living in zina. Even if the whole world agreed to it, the marriage contract was not conducted. You need to marry again and repeat the marriage once again with the consent of the father, with the 2 witnesses. Prior to that, with you and her repenting to Allah, expressing remorse and asking Him for forgiveness for living in zina all that time. Sayyid Fahim says, I run a cat posting page where I post photos of cats, but in these posts, male and female mention opposite genders, and the audience has variety of religious beliefs. Should I delete the whole page because it might help free mixing, or should I disable comments and continue to post cats on the page? I would definitely mute the comments and continue doing whatever you were doing before. Posting photos of cats is permissible. There's nothing wrong in that, inshallah. Tazreen Andolun says, is it permissible to buy and sell stationaries that have images of animate beings on them? No. If these stationaries have pictures of Mickey Mouse, of Avengers, of anything that is alive, cartoons, etc., you're not allowed to buy or sell these. But if there is a need to buying such stationaries and there's no other alternative, which is very difficult to imagine, you want to buy a pen and it has the pictures of animals or drawings of cartoon, and there is no other pens you can buy in the whole market without such images, then this is permissible only, and Allah knows best. Shahad Hussein says, what is the ruling on divorce if the word uttered but intention in the heart? If the word divorce was uttered, this is a divorce. If someone says to his wife, I divorce you, and he intends to intimidate her, not to divorce her, or he intends to joke with her, not to divorce her, the divorce takes place, because the wordings are clear and not ambiguous, and hence the divorce takes place immediately. Farah says, is it allowed to share a drink with a non-Muslim, like if they are friends? Things like these usually happen at schools, please. So if you're talking about sharing a Coke or a soft drink or a juice, there's no problem in that. Sharing it with a non-Muslim is permissible, and there's no problem in that, and Allah knows best. Latifa says, what part of the face consists of the beard? I think that she is asking about what are the borders of the beard? So the beard is the hair that grows on the lower jaw. This is called liha, and the beard is called lihya. So this is the lower jaw. I have rotten teeth, so I hope nothing comes out. Age. So this is the beard from here, and on the cheek where beard is grown. Now, if it's here, it's underneath the eye. This is not the beard. So you can shave this. You can shave this until this limit. This is your cheek bone. Beneath it, on your cheeks, this is your beard. You cannot shave it. Underneath, which is the neck itself, this is also not from the beard. So if somebody looks at the face and cuts from here, this is the face, this is the jaw. Now I'm underneath the jaw. I can cut and shave the whole area here up down to the neck, because this is not part of the beard, and Allah Azza wa Jalla knows best. Akhlaq Ahmed says, I want to know about Prophet Muhammad's parents sallallahu alayhi wa sallam results on the day of resurrection. Well, the Prophet himself told us alayhi salatu wasalam about their fate when a man, and the hadith is in Sahih al-Imam Muslim, the most authentic hadith book after the Bukhari. We all know Bukhari and Muslim are all authentic and accepted by the whole ummah of Islam. A man came to the Prophet ﷺ and said, "O Prophet of Allah, where is my father?" His father was deceased. So he said, "Your father is in hell." So the man a little bit was taken. So the Prophet ﷺ comforted him by saying, "Your father and my father are in hell." Now, the Prophet ﷺ would not definitely lie to the man, telling him that his father is in hell, just to comfort him. Therefore, we have to accept this as a revelation from Allah. What is the reason? We were not told. We know that they followed the religion of Ibrahim, of monotheism, worshipping only Allah. And 50 or 100 years earlier, Ibn Jad'an introduced to Mecca and to the Arabs the worshipping of idols. So they abandoned monotheism and associated others with Allah Azza wa Jalla. So his father might have been, we don't know. What we know is that the Prophet said that his father is in hell. And there's another hadith, also authentic, Sahih Imam Muslim, when the Prophet ﷺ was traveling and passed by the area where his mother was buried. And he cried, alayhi salatu wasalam. So the companions asked him, "Why are you crying, O Prophet? Why are you weeping?" He said, "I requested my Lord to ask for forgiveness for my mother, and Allah denied me that," which means that she was not from among the people of paradise, and this is why it was prohibited to ask for her forgiveness. And I asked Allah to visit her grave, and Allah granted me that. So this is what the Prophet told us, alayhi salatu wasalam. And this is what Muslims believe. Now, do you think that any Muslim on earth would not do everything in his possession just to please the Prophet ﷺ by making his father and mother in paradise? Of course not. We would rather the Prophet's own father and mother be in paradise than our own parents, because we love the Prophet ﷺ and we love what he loves. But this is a decree and the ruling of Allah Azza wa Jal, that as Muslims we cannot transgress and try to defy or to object to, and Allah Azza wa Jal knows best. Ilhan says, I heard anyone who would have a little bit of attitude, that is boasting, he will not enter paradise. So as a Muslim, should we be proud to be Muslims or feel superior to other than Muslims, to non-Muslims? Boasting differs. So you can boast with your beautiful car, with your wealth, with your strength, and these are worldly things. Boasting about them is not a feature of a good Muslim, but this is nothing compared to arrogance, which is kibr. The Prophet said, alayhi salatu wassalam, and the hadith is in Sahih Muslim, لا يدخل الجنة من كان في قلبه مثقال ذرة من كبر. He who has an ant's weight of arrogance would never enter paradise, would not enter paradise. So one man stood up and said, O Prophet of Allah, each one of us would like to have his dress to be neat and beautiful and his shoes to be neat and beautiful. The Prophet said, no. Allah is beautiful and loves beauty. This is not arrogance. Arrogance is when you reject the truth. When someone comes to you and says this and that about you, which is true, and you reject it, you don't accept it, and you look down at people, you resent others. This is arrogance. So now when we come to the issue of being proud, what's the ruling of being proud of being a Muslim? Of course, this is the highest level of pride, that you are a Muslim. You enjoy being a Muslim. You're proud and honored to be a Muslim when others are not. There's nothing wrong in that. But when you look down at non-Muslims and treating them as insects, resenting them, humiliating them, disrespecting them, this is arrogance that would put you in hell. Why? Aren't we a superior people to them? You're superior to them because of your Islam, not because of the color of your hair or of your lineage. You're superior to them because of your Islam. If you're not walking the talk and you are humiliating them, insulting them, resenting them, thinking of yourself as a super species next to them, then you have a problem, and Allah knows best. Umar al-Faruq says, what's the ruling on praying Tahiyyatul Masjid at a non-Jum'ah masjid? It doesn't matter. The most important thing that it is a full-fledged masjid, whether Jum'ah is conducted or not. What does that mean? There are many masjids that are full-fledged masjids, but Jum'ah is not conducted there because the size is not sufficient. The size is in a nearer masjid, which is a grand masjid. So people pray there only the 5 prayers, but not the Jum'ah. And it's a full-fledged masjid. It is a masjid that was built by the owner. The land and the building was given to Allah Azza wa Jal. So it's an endowment, waqf. So here, yes, you must pray 2 rak'ahs before sitting down. But if the masjid is a prayer hall, as our cousins in Malaysia say, surau, so it's not a full-fledged masjid. I go into a mall and there is this prayer hall. I sit without praying 2 rak'ahs. Someone says, hey akhi, this is a masjid, you have to pray 2 rak'ahs. I say, no, this is not a masjid. the administration of the mall tomorrow might change it and put it into a showroom and relocate the masjid elsewhere. A masjid has to be a full-fledged masjid that is owned by Allah Azza wa Jal. No one has the authority to sell it, to change it, to do anything to it. But a temporary masjid at your workplace, in the company, or in your residential building, that can be transformed into anything else later on, this is not a masjid that you're obliged to pray 2 rak'ahs, and Allah knows best. Bansi Ahmad says, should we raise our hands when we stand up for another rak'ah after each tashahhud? Because we may have 2 or more depending on which rak'ah we join the imam in salat. So I'll tell you the reason of Bansi's confusion. The hadith of Ibn Umar, may Allah be pleased with him, that tells us that whenever the Prophet stood up from the first tashahhud to the 3rd rak'ah, he used to raise his hands saying Allahu Akbar. And this happens once in the salat, which is when standing from the first tashahhud to the 3rd rak'ah. Now if a person misses 1 rak'ah, so he is joining the imam in the imam's 2nd rak'ah. So he sits by default in the first tashahhud with the imam, though it is my 1st rak'ah, but it is the imam's 2nd rak'ah, so I have to follow him. Once the imam stands up, do I raise my hands to takbir or not? The answer is yes. Why? Because this is the place of rising or raising your hand. This is the imam standing up from the first tashahhud to the 3rd rak'ah. This is where you follow and you do it. What about when I stand up from my 2nd rak'ah, which is the imam's 3rd, to my 3rd rak'ah, which is the imam's 4th? There is no raising of the hands for you as a follower, because you did not sit for tashahhud. So the main thing is that if you're following the imam and the imam's position requires raising the hands as per the sunnah, you raise your hands. Elsewhere in the prayer, if you are in your first tashahhud standing up to the 3rd, and this can be only imagined if you join the imam in the 3rd rak'ah of Maghrib, or if you join the imam in the 3rd rak'ah of Dhuhr or Asr. So I pray with the imam his 3rd rak'ah, which is mine, my 1st. Then the imam prays the 4th rak'ah, which is my 2nd, and we both sit for the final tashahhud of the imam and the 1st of mine. When he offers salam, I stand up for my 3rd rak'ah, I raise my hands. Why? Because this is my 3rd rak'ah and I am standing from tashahhud. So there's no problem in that, and I hope this answers your question. Muhammad Yusuf says, what is the ruling on forex trading? As in trading in Islam, the halal way. We answered this question so many times and said forex trading is prohibited when dealing with gold, silver, or cash money. Totally prohibited. Because this is online, there is no reality, none whatsoever, to the presence of gold, and there is no simultaneousness in handling, give or take, physically. So this is totally prohibited. When it comes to other stocks, it is like any other commodity or stock exchange. The rulings is that you have to be certain that they possess it, that it is not financed by riba, like most companies, that they don't deposit their savings in banks and take riba on that. And the vast majority of companies, unfortunately, do this, and hence you should not be dealing with that. Farzana bint Fakhrul. Okay. Who are the Sayyids and where are they? This is the first part. The Sayyids are the descendants of the Prophet ﷺ. In my country, we have some families who claim to be the descendants of the Prophet ﷺ. How can the descendants of the Prophet ﷺ end up in unknown villages of a third world country? In a period of 15 centuries, we have Arabs that have traveled as far as Indonesia, and there are Sayyid families thousands of miles away from Arabia. So there's nothing wrong in that. They've traveled, they've settled down, and they have children. The daughter's children do not take the name of her father's tribe. Why then the descendants of Fatima radiallahu anha take the name of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Because the Prophet is not like any father. The Prophet ﷺ lineage is the strongest of all. And he himself called his children to be, that is his grandchildren, to be his own sons. He talked about Hassan and said, Inna bani hadha sayyid. This son of mine is a sayyid, and this is where the word sayyid comes from. So the Prophet called him a sayyid, and he also called him a son, my son. So there is no descendants to the Prophet ﷺ existing today except from the children of Fatima. Yes, Zainab had a child or two. Umama bint Abil As ibn al-Rabi' was the grandchild of the Prophet ﷺ, and also Uthman ibn Affan had a son by name Abdullah, but they did not have offspring like the children of Fatima, may Allah be pleased with her, and Allah knows best. MD Nafis says, I watched a video of yourself where you said there are recommended surahs for witr, 3 prayers or 3 rak'ahs. Can you tell me again, and why are those recommended? The Prophet ﷺ maintained reciting Surah Al-A'la, Sabbih Isma Rabbika Al-A'la in the first rak'ah, Qul Ya Ayyuhal Kafirun in the second rak'ah, and Qul Huwallahu Ahad in the third rak'ah. Why? I have no idea. The Prophet loved these 3 surahs and repeatedly recited them every single night in witr prayer, and Allah knows best. Don Skyzy says, I have a question regarding tahajjud. I used to wake up every night and perform my night prayer, but unfortunately I don't have a fixed rak'ah. Some people say that it's not the appropriate way to perform tahajjud. What's the ruling on that? What they're saying is not entirely accurate, but it has some sense to it. The Prophet said, alayhi salatu wasalam, أحب الأعمال إلى الله أدومها وإن قل. The most beloved deeds to Allah Azza wa Jal are the most frequent, even if they're little. And Mother Aisha tells us that whenever the Prophet ﷺ did something, he maintained doing it, made it a custom, would not let go. From these 2 hadiths and others, some scholars say that it is highly recommended that you maintain a particular number throughout your life, so that even if you miss a night or 2, you will be still rewarded for it. But if you pray one night 3 rak'ahs, another night 5, another night 11, when you miss, will you be rewarded with the highest or with the lowest? Scholars say that you did not maintain 11 throughout your life, and hence you will not be rewarded with 11. So you maintain 3. because sometimes you would pray 3, sometimes you would pray 5, sometimes you would go back to 3, sometimes you go to 11 and you go back to 3. So the 3 is constantly repeated or added to. So this is what we will get. So are you sinful? No, not at all. There's no sin on you at all if you maintain to pray fewer numbers. But if you want the highest amount of reward, you should maintain a specific number. When you're fit, you pray long rak'ahs. When you're tired or sleepy, you pray short rak'ah. So the duration varies, but the number of rak'ahs is constant. Hassan says, what is the part of inheritance for grandsons in his grandpa property while grandpa is alive and the father of his grandson is dead, with reference from the Qur'an, the Hadith? Jazakallahu khairan. Again, your question is similar to the first question of today's session, is not accurate. There are many variables. First of all, the grandson, does he have any paternal uncles? So if the father, the grandfather, whose son died, leaving behind children, if the grandfather dies and he has one single son or more, these sons block any grandchildren from inheriting anything. Even if they say, okay, but where is my father's share? Your father has no share because he died before his own father. So how can he inherit from his own father while his father is still alive and he's dead? So again, Akhi Hassan, your question needs more clarification. Fida says, can you discuss on the purity of small creatures like ants, roaches, house lizards, dead or alive, and also is their feces pure? The scholars say that insects that has no running blood are negligible, such as ants, flies, mosquitoes, scorpions, roaches. So these insects and their feces are negligible and pure. When an insect has running blood, they call it an-nafsu sa'ila, such as a lizard. Then this lizard or a mouse is najis, and the blood of it is najis, and its feces is najis as well. However, the most authentic opinion is, and this is the school of Abu Hanifa and the selection and choice of Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen, that negligible amount of impurity is pardoned, which means that if we see feces of lizards or rats that are dried, these are najis, but we can simply swipe them away. If they're wet, we have to wash the area. So why do we neglect it when it's dry? Because when the Prophet ﷺ saw a cat and gave that cat some water, the companions were amazed. So the Prophet explained to them ﷺ that this cat is from among those that dwell upon you, males and females. What is the meaning of dwell? Meaning that our contact with them is frequent and it's too difficult to avoid such contact, if not impossible. So najis animals, due to being among those who dwell upon us, we can pardon a lot of the najasa that may be caused by that. Dogs are an exception, because this was clearly stated that their najasa is highly impure and needs to be washed 7 times and once with soil. But when you come to donkeys, for example, we know that the dung of donkeys is rich, najis, and we're not allowed to eat it, and the Prophet described it as being impure. However, the saliva and the sweat of donkeys, due to the fact that we use them so often, are exempted, they are forgiven. Likewise with the feces of rats and lizards, and Allah knows best. Fatima bint Rasul: Ya Sheikh, what is the rule of moving finger during tashahhud? During tashahhud, this movement of the finger is highly recommended sunnah. If you leave your hand like this and you don't move it, and you say Tahiyatullahi wa salatu wa tayyibat, your prayer is valid. If you want more reward and follow the sunnah, you wiggle it in its place, not up and down, just in its place, shake it a little bit like this, and this is a highly recommended sunnah, and Allah knows best. Sad man Saqib says, I found a wali to contact for marriage, but my parents are not responding in this regard. They say get a job and get married then. I did istikhara. Should I stop contacting the wali? If you are unable to provide for your wife, if you are not financially independent, how are you going to get married? So if your parents are not approving and you don't have a job, you don't earn, how would you propose? So definitely you should delay and postpone this until you can stand on your own 2 feet, or you get the green light from your father that he will help you financially. Farhan Mahdi says, Ibn Majah, hadith number 4245, it was narrated by Thawban, may Allah be pleased with him, that the Prophet ﷺ said, I certainly know people of my nation who will come on the day of resurrection with good deeds like the mountains of Tihama, but Allah will make them like scattered dust. Can you please, sir, explain this hadith? It's an issue of dispute among scholars. The most authentic opinion is that this hadith is referring to hypocrites. Full-fledged hypocrites who look like us, who speak like us, and who may pray with us in the masjid and fast with us Ramadan, yet they're full-fledged hypocrites. They hate the religion, they hate the Muslims and Islam, and they pretend to be Muslims. These are the ones who would never ever benefit from their good deeds, and Allah knows best. Aisha Siddiqa says, I want to know about salat of travelers, as there are many opinions. Want to know from the Hanbali fiqh. We don't follow a particular school of thought. We follow the Qur'an and the Sunnah with the understanding of the righteous predecessors, the 3 favorite generations. And when you look at all the evidences combined, you will find that a person has the right to take concessions of traveling as long as he did not settle down. So if you're traveling and moving from one place to the other, not settling down yet, you may shorten prayer and you may combine when needed. But if you go for 3 weeks, 2 weeks, and you settled immediately, you got an apartment, it's furnished, you're living there, and you're settling for a 1-year course or a 4-year bachelor degree, or for work, they're sending you to work there for a period of time, and you've settled down, then you should immediately, once you settled and feel settled, that you should start to complete your prayer and pray on time. Khulud Ismail says, if the woman divorced and her husband lives in another country and they did not meet for 2 to 3 years, so how can she count her iddah? And if he divorced her one time after 3 months, can she marry another man? If a woman was divorced, her iddah starts after the divorce, and her iddah is usually 3 monthly cycles if she's not pregnant. If she's too old to have menses, like she's over 60, in this case it's 3 months period only. Even if she did not see him for 10 years, she must remain the period of iddah if this is the first or the second divorce. And this is 3 monthly cycles. Now, how can she count her iddah? Okay, we mentioned this. If he divorced her one time after 3 months, yeah, can she marry another man? If he divorced her once and she got 3 cycles, not necessarily 3 months, because sometimes women get 3 cycles in 2 months, and sometimes women do not get 3 cycles except in 6th or 7 months, depending on the regular timing of her menses. So if a man divorces a woman and she gets her 3 menses and he does not reconcile with her, she can immediately consider herself a stranger to him, and she can get married with the approval of her father and guardian. This is all the time we have until we meet next time, hopefully next Monday. Next Monday. I leave you fi amanillah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.